Okay, let me be straight with you. When people talk about the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen heading into 2026, they keep coming back to one name. One guy who came out of nowhere and completely changed the identity of this team in the postseason. And if you weren't watching closely last fall, you genuinely missed one of the most quietly dominant relief performances in recent baseball memory. Lewis Varland. Remember that name, because you're going to be hearing it a lot. Here's what makes this story so crazy to me. This guy had 2/3 of an inning of postseason experience before last October. 2/3. That's it. That's his entire playoff resume coming into the 2025 postseason. And then the Blue Jays go on this run, this absolutely wild postseason run, and Varland ends up appearing in 15 out of a possible 18 games. 15. He broke a record that had stood since 1997, surpassing Brandon Morrow and Paul Assenmacher, two names that had shared the all-time postseason appearance record at 14. Varland walks into Game 7 of the World Series and makes it 15. Just like that, history. And the thing is, it didn't even feel surprising by that point. That's how good he was. Every single time John Schneider needed someone to come in and stop a bleeding situation, he looked to his right and Varland was already warming up. It became a thing, a routine. Lewis Varland is warming in the bullpen became one of the most comforting sights for Blue Jays fans all season long. Now think about where this guy came from. He was a starter with the Minnesota Twins. The Blue Jays acquired him at the trade deadline, and Kevin Gausman, one of the best pitchers in the entire sport, called it one of the greatest moves this organization has ever made. That's not a small statement. That's a guy with credibility, a guy who has seen what good roster construction looks like, going out of his way to say this trade was special. And Gausman was right. What makes Varland so valuable is the versatility. He's got a starter's arsenal in a reliever's body, and that combination is genuinely rare. His four-seamer sits in the upper 90s with this explosive ride that makes it incredibly difficult to square up. Then he's got this knuckle curve that generates elite swing and miss numbers. Two pitches that would make most relievers dangerous on their own. But Varland has both of them working at a high level, which is why Schneider could deploy him in virtually any situation against any lineup construction. Now here's where it gets even more interesting heading into 2026. The one knock on Varland last season was lefties. They figured him out for a while, slashing .254 with a .426 slugging percentage against him in 132 plate appearances. That's not a disaster, but for a guy at his level, it's a gap that good hitters will try to exploit. So what did Varland do? He started throwing his changeup, and not just occasionally, he leaned into it hard down the stretch. In September and through the entire postseason, lefties went just 2 for 13 against that changeup. That's a .154 average on a pitch he had barely used all season. He identified the problem, made the adjustment, and executed it when it mattered most. That kind of baseball IQ is what separates good relievers from elite ones. And apparently, he's not done. He spent the entire offseason working to incorporate that changeup into his repertoire against right-handed batters, too. He threw 0 changeups to righties all of last season, and now he's adding it as a genuine weapon for those matchups as well. The reasoning is straightforward. He wants hitters sitting on his four-seamer and knuckle curve to suddenly have another option to account for. His slider against righties got hit hard last year. .375 average, .625 slugging. Those are ugly numbers, and a reliable changeup gives him a much better third pitch in those situations. So you're looking at a pitcher who is actively getting better, who addressed his weaknesses in real time during a postseason run, and who came into spring camp with a clear development plan. He's 28 years old and won't hit free agency until 2030. The Blue Jays have him for the next several years at the exact moment he's becoming one of the most reliable, high-leverage arms in the American League. Now let's talk about the bigger picture for this bullpen, because Varland doesn't operate in a vacuum. Jeff Hoffman is back as the closer, and when you've got a closer of that caliber, the conversation around your setup options becomes a lot more interesting. Tyler Rogers has appeared in 374 games since 2021. That leads all Major League relievers, and he's back as one of the bridge options. And then there's Yimi García, who everybody kind of forgot about because he spent most of 2025 hurt, but when García is healthy, he is a legitimate weapon. 2 consecutive seasons of elbow and forearm issues have cost him significant time, and the Blue Jays need to see him stay on the field, but the talent is undeniable. If all 4 of those guys, Varland, García, Rogers, and Hoffman, are healthy and performing, that is a back end of a bullpen that can compete with anyone in baseball. 4 legitimate weapons, 4 guys who can handle high-leverage situations, 4 guys who give Schneider options regardless of the inning or the matchup. That's genuinely exciting. The realistic concern is durability. Hoffman has set new career highs in appearances and innings in each of the last 2 seasons, and you can only push a closer so far before the workload catches up. García has to prove he can stay healthy for a full year, which he hasn't done recently. Rogers is remarkably durable, but he's also accumulated a ton of innings at this point in his career, and Varland himself logged 72 innings last regular season, plus another 16 in the postseason. That's a significant workload for a guy in his first year as a full-time reliever. This bullpen is going to need depth. The trade deadline on August 3rd is going to be important for this team, and additions will almost certainly be necessary by then. But right now, the foundation they have is significantly better than what they were working with a year ago when García went down, and they were leaning on guys like Yariel Rodriguez and Brendan Little in meaningful situations out of necessity rather than choice. The Blue Jays built something real here, and Varland is the centerpiece of it. He came in from Minnesota as an interesting piece and turned into the most trusted arm on a World Series team. Now he walks into 2026 as the established guy, the one Schneider reaches for when everything is on the line, the pitcher opponents have to game plan for. That's a different kind of pressure than what he faced as a deadline acquisition with nothing to lose, and how he handles that elevated expectation is going to be one of the most compelling storylines of the entire Blue Jays season.